You're listening to the Shared Security Podcast with Tom Eston and Scott Wright, exploring the trust you put in people, apps, and technology.
Brought to you by Scott Wright, the Streetwise security coach, and Tom Eston, penetration tester and ethical hacker. We bring you stories, advice, and tips to help you make better risk decisions because nobody else can make them for you.
Episode 44 for September 2nd, 2015. You can build your own Apple Watch door unlocker. But should you?
Hello, and welcome to the Shared Security Podcast, episode 44 now with Tom Eston and Scott Wright. Today is September 2nd, 2015, and Tom, things are getting busy out there.
It's getting crazy, I'm telling you. We've got this new topic, and I think just the Internet of Things alone is going to keep us busy for quite a while.
Yeah, it could well blow up on us.
Let's not hope not.
We'll get very fat, full of content. So this is good. So, well, let's run through a little brief outline of what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to start out just talking about some. There was an issue with Facebook in terms of the way that they're storing your mobile number in your profile, and there's a way that a security researcher has found to harvest that data and match it up to your profile. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that.
Yeah.
And then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the Internet of Things in terms of I found a interesting article about how to make your own Internet of Thing device, which is a Apple Watch door unlocker. So you can, if you have an Apple Watch, you could unlock your doors, which I thought was kind of neat.
There's a lot of ways you could interpret that title. I'm not sure exactly, but it'll be fun to talk about. Yeah, I read the article. It's going to be interesting. So it's a whole new aspect of Internet of Things stuff. So it'll be cool to talk about. Good.
It really is, yeah. And then kind of on the coattails of that, we'll talk about, and I don't know if many people know about this, but Amazon sells these little, they're called dash buttons, where you can instantly order things through Amazon by pressing a button. And this gentleman found a way to hack these devices to track baby data. So he was interested in tracking, how many diapers am I using for my newborn. But again, it's another conversation of new technology. Here's how they're used. Here's how kind of they can be abused. So we'll have some interesting discussion about that.
Wow,
as well.
It's good to see geeks are actually getting involved in the baby process. So yeah,
of course.
Okay, what else do we have?
And then we're going to talk about some of the. There's been an issue in Android mobile devices that attackers are able to harvest fingerprints through the operating system. Which is a pretty big deal. And then kind of along the same lines, there's been a change where some Android manufacturers now are going to be pushing security updates out to Android devices, which is a pretty significant change for Android.
It really shouldn't be. It should have been done long ago, right? But it's good to see them doing it now, at least.
Yep, exactly.
Good.
And then I think you had a couple...
recently in the last few days, I know there's a story that I had in my Streetwise Security News, a little plug there, on the Gmail password release by a refrigerator, right? It's I think it's one of the Samsung fridges that you connect to the internet, and it wants to talk to various things and somehow makes passwords available. So we'll talk about that in a sec.
Cool.
So, these are a lot of good stories. I think we'll use up our time easily. And thanks, everybody, also for feedback. We've received some good comments, I think, on our new format. Lots of downloads happening on our feeds. So that's good news that we're making a good impact.
Yep, so far so good. And everything is moved over. We have the new site, sharedsecurity.net. where you can go and subscribe to the podcast. If you are already subscribed through iTunes, all of that should automatically have changed over so to the new podcast feed. So let us know.
Previously, we were the Social Media Security Podcast. So for those that are just joining us, we're trying to keep the momentum going for sure.
That's right.
Don't stop now. In fact, tell your friends about it.
Absolutely.
Cool. So I think let's get started. We'll start with, I think the first one was talking about an interesting Facebook glitch, I guess we would call it. They don't seem to think it's a vulnerability, or they didn't, at least when it was first revealed to them. But maybe you could tell us a bit about what happened.
Yeah, so I just found this really interesting, and there's a video that went along with the article from the Guardian, and they interviewed the researcher that found this issue. Essentially, he wrote a script that basically there's a feature called it's Who Can Find Me. So you can enter in a mobile number, and it will match up friends with that number. So you can basically friend them on Facebook. What this gentleman found was you could basically enumerate just random numbers, or what's really called like a brute force attack. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the technical term for it, where you can enumerate phone numbers and then actually match those numbers up to real profiles by the information that Facebook provides naturally through their API that developers use to develop applications and interface with Facebook. The problem was that Facebook really didn't see it as a security problem because this is information that people freely share throughout Facebook. So they kind of came out with a statement that says, well, they can remove the number if they don't want that information exposed. And they have, of course, other controls to detect, malicious activity on their API. What that reads is basically, people trying to do brute forcing of the Facebook API. They're probably going to block you or, do some other action, right, if they can figure out who it is that's doing this. But it kind of goes back to what we've always talked about, of even little bits of information like your cell phone could potentially be used by, the bad guys to match up your profile. And he had gone through some different situations where, he said celebrities that, of course, keep their cell phone numbers private or to only a certain number of people. This is a way to expose that information and do things with it, right?
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting when you look at it. It actually wasn't surprising to me that it's possible to do this, although I didn't know it was possible through an API. But there is, and technically they're probably not wrong or at fault by saying, well, the setting is there. You can turn it on or off if you want. But the problem is it's not really grouped in a place where it's obvious, right? I remember somewhere in the Facebook setting it says allow people to find me by my phone number, right?
Right.
I think that's what the setting was.
Yep.
And so if you say, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, it might be, but if you don't realize that somebody could write a program to basically scan the whole range of phone numbers and just see who belongs to each one, that's what's really happening here, right? And you could quickly build a database of phone numbers matching people's names and profiles. And as you said, if you scan an area where you think it might contain a celebrity or an important business person or political leader, you might actually get their profile returned from one of those phone numbers. And that could potentially be something that certainly wouldn't necessarily have been expected by the person owning the account.
That's right. And it goes back to, Facebook. I mean, honestly, I know people on the Facebook security team and they do a great job. They're very talented. And, it's not about, I think, a security issue per se. It's more of a privacy issue in regards to, Facebook is in the business of obviously making money off of your information. So they do try to provide a balance, right? Of here's information or an API that we have to expose because this is our business. But what's interesting too is they clearly talk about that in their privacy policies and all the things that we tell you to read, right? All the legalese and all of that. That a lot of people just don't bother to read. And this is, one of those situations where, think about, again, just something as simple as your mobile number. And if you want to share, that information.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen over the years, I think Facebook has kind of been aggressive and then backed off in terms of what they do with personal information and how well they allow you to control it. And it actually, sort of, sorry to bring up an aside here, but I just heard today from listening to another podcast that Microsoft is doing some weird stuff with privacy lately too that we might want to touch on. I'm not sure if this is a good segue for that, or if we want to make that another time.
That could be a whole itself.
Yeah,
Windows 10 privacy.
Well, actually, what I heard is they're putting the same code into Windows 7 and 8, which means people might not be any better off sticking to 7 just for privacy reasons.
Right.
So, as we said, it's all about what you choose to share and connect with. You kind of are giving up a certain amount of control over your privacy anytime you do that, and we're not going to be able to say don't connect to things, but you really have to be careful how you do it and maybe segregate your accounts a little more, just so that things are not as easily mapped to create the big picture of who you are.
Yep, exactly.
Cool. Good story.
Yeah, awesome. So let's talk about opening up doors with your Apple Watch.
Yeah, I can't wait. Well, once I have an Apple Watch. You have one, don't you?
I do not. I do not have an Apple Watch. I actually have a Pebble. I took the cheap route of the smartwatch. $80 or $500. I don't know. It's
yeah.
I'll wait for revision 2 that comes out. Right.
Actually, I heard that the Android watches are going to work with iOS. This is another aside. I'm getting scattered here, but
yeah, I'll have to do a quick segment on another podcast about kind of my experience with the smartwatch. And talk about, is it really life changing, or is it more of a hindrance, right?
Okay, maybe in episode 45 we'll set aside a little segment for Tom's experience with the Pebble.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so what's up with the Apple Watch door unlocker?
Yeah,
it sounds like a new password generator, right?
It's really kind of cool. This is if anybody follows Make Magazine. They have a site, makezine.com. This is where I kind of found that, and it's they have all kinds of different type of projects, electronics projects and things that you can do. But this one in particular, I thought it was fascinating that, the Apple Watch really was just released this year, and people are already starting to take advantage of the APIs and developing apps for it. And this one, for about $150 US, you can get the equipment to create your own automatic door unlocker by just basically pressing a button on your Apple Watch through the Bluetooth connection to open up a door.
Or for people who don't have an Apple Watch or an Android watch, you might be able to do it from your smartphone.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that's already been out for a while. Okay. I know Kwikset and there's some other companies that make locks have already been doing the Bluetooth door opening and locking and all of that for a while now.
Right.
But this is I found it interesting though that anybody now can build an application like this, and it also goes into, so what are kind of the security ramifications?
Yeah, I was going to just ask that.
When we're developing things like this, how do we know really any type of smartwatch device or program that does security functions? And this is more of like a physical security function.
Yeah.
What are the implications of that? So
yeah, it's a whole different angle when you think about it. Creating your own Internet of Things thing, as you called it. But if you use the analogy of, what would happen if you tried to create your own door lock, your own physical door lock, right? You might have the skills to create something that's effective, but it's probably not necessarily, cost effective, efficient, and really secure. So from the point of view of creating your own apps to do security related things like unlocking doors, you have to be really careful. And then one thing I noticed in reading that article is they mentioned numerous times securely unlocking your door, which is kind of sounds like a, I don't know, oxymoron, but but what I think they mean is, making sure that it's authenticated before it actually unlocks for just anybody, right?
Right. Yeah. So, this is just another one of a kind of a wait and see. seeing how people are going to start using, Apple Watches and Pebbles and other things like that for more security functions. I think that's just going to increase, mainly because of convenience. People see it as an advantage of, oh, I could just press a button on my watch now and open my door. I don't even have to use my phone or a key, let alone to get into my house.
So how secure do you think it is to actually implement this kind of an app?
Well, since it's using Bluetooth, in the past, Bluetooth has had its own security challenges in terms of, older, versions of Bluetooth. There were ways that you could intercept Bluetooth and, replay connections or find out what the pin is. In recent versions, they've done better security around how you implement Bluetooth. But like any short range technology, RFID has the same challenges. We could have another episode talking about how people can create devices to skim, those credit cards that have RFID, PayPass, and those types of things. You could do the same thing with the Bluetooth if you're close enough.
Yeah.
But that's the key, is you got to be close enough, because Bluetooth is a short range.
Right. But it wouldn't be unthinkable that an attacker might place a sensor somewhere nearby, and you just think there's nobody around skimming you, and there might be something that could listen in. Yeah, theoretically, I'm sure it's possible. That would be a good thing to research and find out if that type of attack scenario could happen. But again, every time we introduce new technology and everything that's new is usually very hackable. Yeah.
Which is actually a great segue into fingerprints on phones.
Do tell.
Yeah. So this is another article in Ars Technica. We'll put in the show notes as well. I thought, again, fascinating in terms of, I didn't realize this. I actually had thought that when fingerprint information is being stored if it's being stored at all on a device, I know Apple doesn't do this, but they actually record the fingerprint itself on some of these HTC handsets. There was, I think it was a Samsung Galaxy S5, which is an extremely popular phone.
Yeah.
And this article talked about how FireEye disclosed a vulnerability where, as we all know, Android has a large problem with malware.
Yeah.
And malware can be written to harvest users' fingerprints really off of the device, and can be used to hijack, transactions. So, for example, you can use your fingerprint now on these devices to pay for things, pay for apps, pay for, whatever. And that's a big security concern. And I just thought it was interesting how Android has implemented that feature, or at least these handset manufacturers have. It's a little opposite of what Apple's been doing, even though Apple has had issues with this as well. Yeah. If you remember when the fingerprint readers first came out, they on the iPhone 5s, they had big issues with those as well.
But they solved those fairly quickly, I think.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty popular way of securing iPhones now. But one of the things I noticed in this article about the Android vulnerability, there's multiple problems with this approach, right? They're storing, in some cases, like a bitmap image in the clear without it being even encrypted. So any app that tries to access that area of the file store might be able to access the raw. It's almost like storing your passwords unencrypted in a password file, right?
It really is. Yeah, but biometric data, which is really scary.
And the second aspect of it, from the point of view of how a malicious app could access the fingerprint reader itself, is really more of a security architecture issue on what should be able to access those sensors, right? And whether it's protected in a kernel type architecture.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So it's Android does have a few holes in it that we can see.
Yeah, and which is a good segue into the next discussion of now that all these different flaws have been coming out recently for Android, especially I'm sure you've heard of the stage fright bug. Which,
did we talk about that last time? I can't remember.
We didn't, because it was kind of in between episodes.
Maybe we should just do a quick refresh on what stage fright is.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, basically, an attacker can send you a text message, and that text message can essentially allow the attacker to gain access to your phone. So it was a pretty severe bug that was discovered. In fact, some people called it like the worst Android bug ever
Yeah.
discovered. And the good news about that, though, is major Android manufacturers, really have gone above and beyond and quickly fixed that issue. But on the heels of that, it also opened up the discussion about maybe we should start talking about how we can get patches and security fixes out to Android devices a lot quicker. Because the challenge has always been with something called device fragmentation in the Android world, where we have so many devices running different versions of Android, and most of them are not updated, and there's no
Through different manufacturers too, right?
and through cell phone carriers, there's
Yeah, the cell phone carrier is the big thing also because the carriers are more or less responsible for pushing stuff out to
right.
their subscribers, and they're not all that diligent about it. Some of
That's
them.
correct. Yeah. So it's been a big problem past, and now it sounds like that at least Samsung, LG, and Google have gotten together to figure this out, and they're putting together basically a new update process that really fast tracks
Yeah.
security patches over the air when these vulnerabilities are discovered.
So
And I'm
then it
sure
shouldn't rely on the carriers
the
to do
carrier.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, so they've probably have now some arrangement with the carrier, which has always been kind of the roadblock there, with a lot of these cases. And of course, Google is taking the lead. Google has always been really good about their own devices, so the Nexus devices that are Google branded. They've done a good job in the past of pushing out updates, but now they're kind of taking the lead of that, and I think it's a good thing for Android security overall.
Yep. Good. So yeah, we'll watch that one, and hopefully things will come along a little more frequently to keep the Android phones patched because we are noticing a lot of vulnerabilities there.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah. I mean, and there are ones that come out occasionally for Apple devices, but not nearly as many as we see in Android.
Good. So now back to some fun hacking stuff.
Yeah. So this is another article that we'll link in the show notes about a gentleman who hacked Amazon's dash buttons, which they're basically like $5 Wi-Fi buttons that get from Amazon for things that you buy a lot, so like diapers.
I just
right?
want to clarify: when we say hacked, we don't mean broke in maliciously.
That's
right?
correct.
We're talking about the geek type hacking project type mentality.
That's right. In fact, and he didn't even touch the hardware itself. He basically used like a network monitoring program to modify the network requests. Instead of going to Amazon, they go to his own system, and then that way he can kind of track, hey, I'm using another diaper. He hits the button, and he has a spreadsheet. I mean, it's total geek stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, kudos to him. I don't know if I'd spend the time. Oh wow, look, every time I pick up a pencil or
But you know what, it almost it as soon as I read the article, it started giving me ideas of this is kind of cool, how you could how many different uses you could have for just having a button you can push somewhere sometime and having something automatically happen at least in your files or your logging. So that is kind of an interesting idea. Lots of applications.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to get one of these from Amazon and play with it myself. But again, this
before
is another...
they discontinue them or keep people from being able to do this.
Right. I just found it fascinating that Amazon obviously has a business purpose, and for some people it may make a lot of sense. But this definitely falls in the category of the Internet of Things. Again, a Wi-Fi enabled button.
Yeah, I was just going to sort of back up and say, so the point of Amazon selling these things, as you said, was so they can sell stuff to you very easily, right? So presumably, I think they said, if you put one of these buttons in your pantry or something, then something that you might run out of that you want to order off Amazon, you just push the button and it's there in 2 days, right? That's kind of the business model they're thinking of. But what this guy did really was figure out that the button somehow has to connect with your home network, and that's a detectable event. And he uses that and the MAC address of the device itself in order to be able to make some useful information out of it for his own signaling purposes, and then dead end the purchase request, basically, so he doesn't buy anything explicitly. But so Amazon may not be too happy about that part of it, but it'll be interesting to see if they do anything about that.
But that also opens up the question of, so if this guy was able to do this for, good purposes and, things that are going to help him out, what could an attacker do, right?
Yeah,
what if, great, you're ordering diapers or whatever, what have you, but how could that be manipulated to maybe, harvest other information about your purchasing habits or about who you are?
I hate to say it, but it's going to be where it's going to be. It's going to be in your TV or your fridge.
Sure.
Something's going to listen for that button being pushed and say, the guy's buying stuff from Amazon.
I think
send it through your fridge manufacturer.
I thought there was a fridge that already did that. Like if you put a carton of milk like on a certain area of the fridge, it will actually weigh and measure. And
that's the intended design. But what I was thinking is the fridge could be monitoring other devices to see what they're doing, right? So it's going to be like IoT wars or something within your house.
Robot wars, but IoT wars. Yeah. Can you imagine? Yeah, it's crazy. So this is good stuff. I think we're just going to see little things like this coming out that are. It's going to be interesting from a security and privacy perspective how we handle that.
And as if we haven't had enough fun, let's make fun of some CIO people.
Sure.
Organizations.
Well, just to mention real quick, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but Oracle's CSO had come out in a blog post several weeks ago. If you really want an entertaining read, I recommend finding it. We'll have a link to the web archive because it's been deleted by Oracle. But she's Marianne Davidson's a character. She's been known for kind of coming out against security research and vulnerability disclosure.
Let me guess, she doesn't have a real deep security background?
She actually does.
Okay.
She's pretty well accomplished, but she's very outspoken and a very big proponent on EULAs and contracts and,
doing it by the book. Yeah.
Doing it by the book and things like that. And
so let's set the stage and paint the picture of what she actually did or said.
So she had basically said that, if you're reporting security vulnerabilities to Oracle, you're essentially breaking their EULAs, meaning that you're not allowed to disclose security vulnerabilities because, we're taking care of that for you. You don't have to worry about that. And the reason I bring it up and why I think that's a dangerous statement to make is when I'm hoping that manufacturers of these new Internet of Things and those types of devices don't have that same philosophy, because that could really stifle, I think, the security of all products.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Because if you're not accepting it's just like if you're not accepting feedback, right? For maybe I didn't like the thing that you did.
Yeah.
Right. It's that same concept, and it's just a dangerous precedent.
Yeah. And I think even deeper from a customer customer service point of view, it's really an aspect of quality, right? I've often said security is just another aspect of quality. If the product works the way it should, that's good for security. If it's not secure, it's not good quality. So you really need to be thinking of this from a quality point of view, and you can't just say, don't try to break our thing.
Right.
Because they should be doing that themselves, and they say they are, but they're clearly not always doing that.
Yeah, it's just Oracle has always been like that. They're very kind of anti the rest of the security community, and unfortunately they're kind of stuck in the ice age, right? In terms of when we have we have bounty programs now, like companies like HackerOne, BugCrowd, and these other companies.
They're not going away.
No, they're not, and they're just increasing. And it's been a great outlet for big companies to get information about vulnerabilities. And in fact, it makes their products more secure at the end of the day.
It should, yeah. I mean, people, the healthy way to look at this is the way some are, where they have the bug bounties and say, yes, tell us everything you can about how we can make this better. That is the
Right.
bottom line.
Yeah.
But I mean, on the other hand, if you don't do that, you end up with these things like, brokerages where they're selling vulnerability information, in a
Yeah.
black market, and
Right.
that's you don't want that. So.
Absolutely. So,
All right. Well, I think that wraps up quite a fun
Yeah.
episode, and I think we'll try and keep the momentum going, as we said. I just wanted to make a quick plug and say that we thank Tom's employer for letting him spend a few minutes talking to us, which would be Veracode, correct?
that's right.
Yep. And also myself, Security Perspectives is my consulting organization where I do a lot of work on security awareness, education, human vulnerability auditing, and strengthening. And I also have a newsletter called the Streetwise Security News that I put out on a monthly basis, and wish you'd have a chance to subscribe and have a look at it and give us feedback on it. So I think that wraps up today's episode, and
That's
look
right.
forward to doing another one, hopefully maybe in less than a month.
Yeah. We're going to try for maybe a couple weeks.
Perfect.
See how that
I think
goes.
we have some notes already started for our next episode, so
Yes, we
this is
do.
going to be a busy time now that we've changed our scope a little.
Definitely.
Great. Well, thanks everybody for joining us, and keep in touch. Let us know how you like the new program.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks. Bye-bye.